Hey everyone, welcome to episode number 8. In this episode, I had the founder of NNoxx, Justin Saul. NNoxx combines the state of the art sensors and AI powered analytics to guide you to peak health and performance. So, if you are interested in sports, analytics, AI, fitness wearables, you must watch the entirety of this episode and learn more about NNoxx and Justin's experiences with startups. And why is NNoxx different from these other fitness wearables? Because it tracks health and performance by being the first company to measure nitric oxide non-invasively. So stick around until the end as we get much deeper into his learnings in entrepreneurship in his 20s, fatherhood, striking a balance in life, and his purpose to continuously build. So without further delay, let's get into the meat of this show.
Yeah.
Bitching. And I just keep moving with my craft and do and so
Goodbye.
like a lot of people. So I was like,
Hi guys.
And I love this world. And sometimes I wake up and I already understand it.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Shmeet Singh podcast. And this is me, Shmeet Singh, your host as usual. And today we have Justin Saul, a serial entrepreneur and a consultant to numerous startups throughout his career. Currently the CEO and co-founder at NNoxx. Welcome, Justin, and thanks so much for giving us your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So just to give the listeners a bit more about your background and what you do, and sort of what gets you out of bed every morning.
Yeah, sure. So as you heard, my name is Justin Saul, and I'm a father, a husband, a tech entrepreneur, an innovator, and a tech leader. And short, I've worked for startups, mid-sized companies, Fortune 500 companies, and as always, enjoy advising fellow founders. And really what gets me out of bed every morning is really wanting to create. So as I see it, I see innovation as my art and business is my canvas. And so everywhere I go, I always see an opportunity. If I'm eating out at a restaurant, or I'm in a business meeting, or I'm just reading an article online about something going on in the world, there's always a part of me that's thinking through that of like, what problem can be solved and how could it be solved in a new way? So that's every day.
Does that ever get annoying for people you're with?
I have learned to keep most of it to myself, but my wife is definitely used to it and accepts it as who I am. So
I was going to say, I assume that by this time, like most of the people that you surround you with are also interested in similar things. So they probably bounce off some ideas to you as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't say everyone around me. I would say there's definitely a group of people around me that I know that are also creators that also thoroughly enjoy those kind of thoughts. But I also don't do it every day with them. Only when I really get really excited about something, I might ping them off, or I know they're interested in the topic as well, and then I might have that conversation. So contextual.
Yeah. Awesome. And then this isn't your first job. So you said you were like, you've done mentorship and other jobs to other things. What happened to them? Are you still running those, or are you only focused on NNoxx right now?
I am fully focused on NNoxx at the moment. You're right. It is not my first run at it. Each one comes to an end for different reasons, but each one enhanced my skill set to be successful in both in future startups that I belong to, like NNoxx, for example, or in if I go back and work in a role at a larger tech company.
So what are some of these things that you learned from your previous startups? Whether they fail or did not fail, but there must have been some things that you learned and you were like, okay, I wish I'd do something different now.
Yeah. So you're right. Each one does have its lesson. It's funny. Each one seems to have kind of some theme involved, and you don't see it until you do it multiple times. But some of them sound pretty obvious. You don't always know you'll come to that conclusion until it's all done. But for example, one basic client stopped because we were actually too early into a market. We it was innovative product. It was exciting, except that the market wasn't ready to receive it. Another time was kind of a more of a classical product market fit complication. You thought you were getting product market fit, but like often when you get to the customer, it ends up falling apart. What you thought would happen versus what actually happens. That's a classical one that occurs.
Yeah.
And other ones that have been successful, you learn about, how to properly scale, or often in every single one of these, the learning was really more about a lot about myself, what me as a person and what I value and what I bring to the table. It was a kind of a reinforcing mechanism and proof.
Yeah. I think the timing and just the other theory of like why when startups don't get product market fit is a very like a textbook thing where like you can learn of other people, but like realizing your own strengths and weaknesses and your own things that you did wrong is like I think what differentiates it. And then so regarding that actually, since you brought yourself up, that I was going through some of the things that you've written, and you said that like servant leadership is something that you follow and you impose in your companies. Can you tell us more about like what exactly it is and why you think it's so important?
Yeah, and really, I think it depends on the individual and the culture you're in or you want to create. It really was fairly early on that I experienced more sort of leadership and began training in it. It eventually aligned with my values so that it felt natural to me that that's something I wanted to go do. And really, it's about, it's more about how to make yourself available as a leader to really support the people that are with you, right? It's really about empowering them, inspiring them, getting yourself into the group around you to make everyone better, right? It's not so much, please me as a leader, like do what I ask. It's more of like, I am here for you, right? It's kind of inversing some of it. And it's always led to fantastic results. And like I said, to me, that aligns with my values and therefore it feels natural.
So tell us about how NNoxx came into play, because NNoxx is like a very it's not a software company or like one of those software stuff. It's really actually like a hard tech solution that you came in. So how did you even come up with NNoxx? Because that's not something you go out with your friends and think about and then come up with a solution for. So I'm assuming that must have taken a lot more thinking.
Yeah, kind of. So in general, I think I've been all over the map in terms of what industries I've worked in. So for me, it's not out of the ordinary to just jump into an industry I don't know a ton about. I think a lot of the innovation comes from when you mix disciplines or cross industries and take learnings from one and apply it to another. So for NNoxx, how it came about, well, let's take a step back to tell you what NNoxx is today.
Yeah.
And then I can tell you about how it came back. So summary of NNoxx. NNoxx is really redefining human health and performance with the world's first non-invasive nitric oxide measurement. NNoxx combines state-of-the-art biosensors and AI-powered analytics to really help people boost their nitric oxide levels through exercise. That's what we are. And how we got here is like a lot of startups. That was not how we started. Not even the same name, nothing about it. Really, I got involved with another founder early on another concept, which was really, it was about a better way to do full body exercise with some customized hardware that was developed. And then we kind of started adding some technology to that. And what we saw is we got really great results. The problem is we couldn't really explain why we were getting such good results. So we kept asking, well, why do we get the results? And why does that happen? And on and on. And then we expanded the scope to invite more experts into the team. And fast forwarding a bunch through this, we eventually landed on that answer, which was it's actually the great results at the core of it all was bioactive nitric oxide.
Yeah.
And so then the question became, well, if that's what's happening, can we measure that? And then what can we do with it? And that's really the spark that came from for NNoxx. And by being able to measure it and then instruct how to increase it and what other outcomes you can get with it, that's where it really, really became this amazing startup, right? It had a real vision, a real powerful product, a real drive to, help people. And so really that's the kind of, it was a multi-year journey, but it really is one of those stories of where this company started as one and then just naturally evolved into something much better.
So you really like kind of like approach this following like the first principles thing. Like you saw that there were these results and you really asked yourself like why several times, like why this is happening, and then once you found that, you could approach the problem. And then what happened after you found out, okay, it was nitric oxide, sorry. So do you have any background in this? Like when you first found out, like were you like, okay, what do I do with this information? I have no idea. Like how do you approach that then?
Yeah, so that's where all the other experts that we invited to the group come to play. Where I am not a doctor of any sort of kind. I am not a physiologist. Those are people we brought into the fold to really explain it and help us understand it. That was the science behind it, the physiology behind it, the human need of it. That was then crafted. From my side, it was more of the business and engineering side, which was can we build something that actually does this? Like, okay, that's great, we know what it is, but can we go measure it? Can we go build something that people will use? And then secondly, and really important was, is there a business model here to be had? It's wonderful to take measurements and that could help many people. But if that's all you do, is that a really sustainable business? And so that's where I really dug my teeth into it, which was we got this innovation, and then from my standpoint, it was, okay, now take it from the innovation and make it real as a product and make it real as a sustainable business model.
Yeah. So that's nitric oxide. That's how NNoxx came in. Okay. I just realized that. But so this okay, you have this business model, it's like an AI powered wearable, like gives you analytics, and you suggest them that, okay, this is how you can improve your nitric oxide levels and it'll improve your overall performance. But do you have this business model, you've convinced like investors or other people like, hey, we work in this cool project, but how do you know if like this is what customers will actually like buy? Like how do you validate the product from like a customer's market point of view?
Yeah, so for product market fit is kind of what you're hitting on here. We started once we understood what we were actually capable of doing. We started conversations with potential clients in the professional human performance industry. So those would be like trainers for professional athletes, etc. Right at that level, and we went to them and asked them basically to validate that. What is the highest value outcome they see, and how can we meet those needs? And so that was our first round of validation. To go, okay, indeed, that market of high performance athletes and their trainers really have this need to have a trusted measurement and to have a tool that enables them to get recommendations without them becoming experts in the measurement itself. Because often in the industry, we found that you may have all these measurements, but then you also have to become an expert in all the measurements to then work with your clientele on how to make them better. So we took both those things on to create a product. And then, as I say that, the part that we're completing our validation on right now is with consumers, because this is also not just for athletes and anyone that's looking to be their highest performance. It's also for your general health. The problem is, your doctor will tell you to be healthy, go exercise, right? And the question is, well, what does that mean? How intense? How often? You'll get like a different answer from every doctor you talk to, right? And different studies will say 3 times a week, really intense, and 5 times a week walking down the street. Like, they all say something different for healthy. For us, we now have a measurement for you that says, if you do this program with us, this amount of time and intensity, and it modifies itself automatically, then you will hit your healthy target. You'll actually hit a number that shows that you are doing the right thing for you as a person. So it's we go beyond just like, hey, yeah, I want to be the strongest, the fastest, the whatever. It's meant for myself, for example. I'm a busy professional. I don't have a lot of time, but I know I need to exercise to be healthy, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's, okay, can I, in my limited amount of time that I have to exercise, get the best possible exercise for my health and maintaining my health? And that it goes into like, wow, there's a lot more science here on why nitric oxide is so foundational for your health.
Yeah.
But conceptually, that's how we're doing product market fit. So we did it with the kind of the high end part of the market, and we're in the middle of conducting it in the consumer.
Why is nitric oxide so important, though? Just to like kind of give us a brief this thing, and why. Other thing I'm curious about is like, why haven't the other, like a lot of like the fitness wearables companies that have gone in, like Apple and Google with the Fitbit, why haven't they thought of this?
It's a great question. It's a question I asked myself.
Yeah.
So without being the scientist on the team and in the world, I'll keep it simple. So this form of bioactive nitric oxide, it plays 2 fundamental roles. The first is it enables effectively guiding your oxygen from your red blood cells into your tissues, your organs, your muscles, and eventually your brain. So oxygen is vitally important to all those. The thing that is not as often known to, let's say, just to consumers, is that it's the nitric oxide that's kind of guiding it there. It also is part of the what regulates blood flow. So it's sending it's one of the components that sends a signal to open or close, your vascular structures to send more blood to the areas that are needed, right? So you can see how that's so core to how your body operates in delivering the nutrients it needs and the oxygen it needs. It's a foundational player. So why has no one else done this? It's a question I asked myself when we got to this point too, because it was like, wait a minute, why has no one done this? As it turns out, 2 main reasons. One, you can measure this through a certain type of blood draw. So you can invasively make a measurement. What hasn't happened is a non-invasive measurement, just a wearable, right? And it's just the turned out the limiting factor was, we'll just call it an advancement of optics. So the ability to see into the body the way that we're doing it is unique. And, I think if we hadn't done it now, it's just over time, I think someone naturally would have also done it, but we just happened to find a way to do it before anyone else. And it's been an incredible journey. It really has. It was the best part about this has been, like I said, every startup has something different. I think the best part about this has been, for me, is pretty much almost every day, or at least a period of every week, I've had to fall back onto every course I ever took anywhere, whether it's from, my tech background with computer science, or I had to go into physics, and I had to go into optics, and I had to go into electrical engineering, and I had to like understand all the business courses and marketing, like every day. So it was incredible to put this all together in the time frame that we did. Really, it's been a huge mental challenge, but it was incredibly fun to go solve that problem.
And so how are you like iterating the design? And because unlike a lot of like software companies, which is easy to iterate and just update software, like here you're doing a fitness wearable. So if you are giving it, for example, beta testing to some users, and then the design isn't good, so how do you go about like redesigning the whole process? That must be like a really long, like just a long
Right.
process as well, right?
Well, normally it would be, right?
Yeah.
And it's definitely not agile like in software. You can't just iterate every 2 weeks on on a piece of hardware.
Yeah.
It's going to be, there's going to be a further retrospective I'll have to do. I mean, I'm in the thick of it, so it's not so easy to have that rear view mirror look at it. But I think a couple things. Knowing that we're a startup, knowing that you have a short runway to get something to go, knowing that we're doing it at a time when the supply chain has been broken in the technology world. We had to make a lot of very educated assumptions up front, and do quick virtual validation on. By that I mean, like, for a product, show it to some people, get their feedback, and they couldn't really hold it. But in this era, we had 3D printers, so we could print a version of the product to share, let someone hold it, feel it, get some quick feedback that way. But some of this stuff, there's just one shot at it. There really is just you build in some capabilities to have flexibility. For example, if the hardware is kind of going to be more or less a one shot to go to market with, you build in a few extras, and that the firmware can be updated. So where where software is, you can change it. But in terms of hardware, you make a couple of assumptions, you build in some excess capabilities to it. Make sure that you can adjust if the market wants you to adjust. But you're right. There's no similarity between I have this MVP and I'll get your feedback, and then next week I'll show you something new. You can't really do that.
But I guess that would, in this case, like as you said, just doing a lot of like extensive research so that you can make those educated guesses, and then there's still ways about it from being like doing 3D printing, and I think that's interesting. And then, is your user interface in a phone app right now, or how does a user check its analytics and stuff like that?
Yeah, no, that's right. So we have the wearable device that you wear during exercise, and in real time that communicates to your mobile phone on an app.
Okay.
And then it gives you the feedback right there and then post workout give additional feedback. And then that's uploaded into our cloud for further analytics and feedback. Yeah.
And is in the future, is there going to be like a user interface within the wearable as well, or no?
No, we did not want to put a like a screen or any kind of that type of interface on the device itself. We wanted to make it as
light.
Yeah, well, not only light, but we wanted it to almost be like, in some ways, it wasn't there. I think, we want you to use it, but not to know it's there, not to stare at it. Yeah, we didn't want you to stare at our device. In fact, that's I won't go into too much, but that's how our app is going to be as well. It's not going to be, I'm going to stare at phone the entire time and look at some metrics. We're going to tell you the best way to do the exercise that you're doing to increase your nitric oxide, but it's going to be very subtle. It's not going to be this thing you'll want to get in the way of we don't want to get in the way of you having fun doing your exercise. Well, hopefully you're having some fun. It's not our place to be, I feel like some of the feedback we've got about other offerings in the marketplace is like, there's just a ton of data being thrown at me, but what do I do about it?
Yeah. Being overwhelmed by all the information. Yeah.
Right.
And especially if it's for as you said, it's like if a data user, people who don't want to commit so much time in this for something, they don't want to be bombarded with so much information. They, as you said, it needs to be minimalistic and just tell them what's important and not.
Correct.
Awesome. And then I'm not sure if you're allowed to share this information, but I was curious about knowing what stage of the company are you? Are you raising money or are you hiring people or?
Yeah, I'll do my best here. We we're no longer raising. We completed that. We are.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We are pre-revenue. And pre-launch, but that will be changing soon.
Okay.
Can't talk too much about that right now until we're ready to announce those plans.
Okay.
I'll also say that while not today, we are going to begin hiring, and so anyone that's listening is welcome to find us, find NNoxx on LinkedIn. Yeah, and that's where I'll be posting those openings as they happen.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I don't want to go and stress you out about asking more questions about what stage it is. So yeah, you. Well, I was kind of going to go back into this whole thing with these other bigger companies. And you said you're kind of asking yourself that question as well. But I guess my thing is more what happens if they do decide to wear on something? Do you guys think that you have some sort of a head start? Is it going to take them a while to get into it?
Oh, I see. You're asking if some big tech firm will want to compete with this?
Going back to the whole Apple Fitbit thing, right? Okay, they haven't done it yet. Maybe they haven't figured it out.
Got it.
But if they find a non-invasive method, as you guys are doing as well, to get into it.
Sure. So I'll answer that kind of a couple different ways because just honestly, that's how you have to answer it. So at the moment, we're not really trying to compete with the likes of Apple or Google as we're not an all-day wearable, right?
Yeah.
This is a on-demand wearable. And we're more of a companion at the moment. Really, we are more of a companion to those offerings, right? We can work with your Apple Watch or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Provide more data to it. Just maybe display what we want to have you do during exercise, so your phone's not in front of you. You're just looking at your watch, type thing.
Yeah.
And really, if you think about it, as we become successful and their eye finally turns in the direction, because honestly, companies like that don't look at you until you're successful. Yeah. It'd only be natural for big tech to want to obtain a platform like ours to gain a competitive edge in the long run, rather than try to build it themselves. That's just kind of their model. I will also just state we have, and it's why I don't always speak in the fine-grained detail that I should, is we have currently, and many more to go, patents filed. So we have quite a bit of IP protection and internal know-how that would take quite some time to, duplicate,
the barrier to entry
work
is high.
around, or the barrier of entry to do this is very high. Even if we didn't do any of the IP protection, it would still be a high barrier of entry given the nuance of what we're doing and how we had to go about discovering it. I think it would take significant amount of resources to reproduce.
Okay. And then kind of stepping back from just NNoxx, but in general, what do you think is the biggest challenge in general in the fitness wearable industry? And, what can we learn from other hardware related companies or startups as well that are innovating?
Sure, good question. I will first caveat this by I am not a fitness wearable industry expert, right? As I said earlier, I walked into multiple industries without being an expert. But from my learning so far, I think it boils down to trust and longevity. And by that, I mean trust in the metrics being captured are accurate and meaningful. And then following that is having your customers engage with your wearable for years. I think the fitness wearable industry has always suffered from the secondary one, which was how do you get them to keep your product on them for years? Often you'll find that they have there's either the real quick ramp off, like I tried wearing your watch for a week and then I forgot to and I never put it on again, to I used it for a year and it was super interesting, but I'm not sure why I should continue wearing it. I mean, there's always people that have been wearing stuff for years and years, but as a general context, I think that's an industry problem that's trying to be solved. I think, and then, foundationally to the industry, it's just, what are you capturing about me? Is it accurate? And what does it mean for me? Just because you capture the number of steps I take per day or my heart rate, that's interesting, but what does it mean for me? You're seeing the evolution of the industry to create more meaning out of those metrics. But there's a difference between those of us that geek out on the stuff and love to capture information about our bodies and just look at data. There's always that category. And then there's others that I don't really understand or want to know the nuance of this data that's being captured. Just tell me how do you achieve X, right? Help me lose weight. Help me be fit. Help me be healthy. Help me avoid a heart attack, whatever it may be, right? I think those are the two foundational challenges that the industry.
And I think that's even more important for people, everyday people that aren't making this their lifestyle. Oh, well, they're making it its lifestyle, but they're not competing, I guess, professionally. And so they don't want to really go into a lot of the, nuances or the pain of doing research and figuring out what to make of those metrics that they're being shown, but they just rather have someone tell it. The other thing I was curious to know, if from your experience it's true as well, is that I think a lot of people find it kind of suspicious that, data is always obviously a big problem, but in this case, they're getting data of their actual, their body or what they're doing and, their statistics of their body. And they don't want companies to use stats of their bodies in order to sell data. So has been another issue as well, you think? Or?
Yeah, I think it's in general, it's my data. What are you doing with it issue? I haven't dug into, so I don't have a good answer for our companies trying to use it to sell something. I know that's not our goal at all, but I don't know. I don't know how big of an issue that is because I haven't thoroughly investigated. But the concept of privacy is I think across the tech industry, including wearables, it's an important issue of making sure that I'm granting you access to, for this case, my body. Right, granting access to capture something, that goes back to trust. Also, how do I trust that you're doing right by me and making sure that you're doing your best to keep it secure? Yeah, agreed.
I think the fitness wearables industry, at least for me, has been something that I'm most excited about, and I think it's obviously the adoption is going to increase in the future. And I think I'm excited about seeing how you said that the design and you want it to feel it doesn't even exist. I think that's been one reason why I feel personally I wouldn't be getting a lot of this stuff is because I just the whole design and it just seems like it's too much in my hand and I just want it to be there and not realize that it's there. So I think that's going to be important. I'm super excited about how NNoxx comes and changes the industry. And what's your kind of sort of trying to wrap up in the whole NNoxx topic is what's your end goal, your vision? Do you wish to see every individual in the world using it? Is that your end goal, or do you want to kind of specify to more athletes or teams? Or
no, really, you just hit on it. Our long-term vision is to empower every person to achieve their optimal cognitive physical health through fitness, through nitric oxide. It is currently the only real known way to increase this form of biological nitric oxide is through exercise.
Yeah.
And really, it's so foundational. It is, no matter what your goal in life, we can be that guiding rail to get you there. So, as I said, my goal is to just be a healthy individual. I'm not going to compete in the Olympics, right? That's not my goal. And through this platform, I can achieve that on my terms, meaning in my time that I assess. Likewise, if you are really wanting to be competitive, even just for fun on the weekends, or you actually want to be competitive in pro sports, whatever it is, we have a number of metrics and analytics to help you achieve that goal. Endurance, power output, whatever it may be, we have that for you. So I think it's going to eventually be a core metric of health. Just like you go and get your heart rate or your, they look at your oxygen levels, right? Because they just put that thing on your finger, right? Or even on your watch, and they say, okay, here's my oxygenation level. As pretty much everyone gets that when they go to the doctor or they have it on their watch, we envision this, because this is just as core to everything. This also, our measurements will also be everywhere.
So actually, regarding that, I had one more question regarding this.
Yeah, sure.
Was that so? This whole you figured out this nitric oxide importance of it, and after a while, right? So if you want every single person to adopt it, they need to first understand the importance of knowing why measuring a nitric oxide is important. So isn't that going to be a challenge as well? Educating people,
yes.
hey, you need to understand why it's so important first.
Yes, you've just spelled out half our marketing plan. So right, there's a segment of the population that kind of either gets it already, or that they don't understand it but want the outcome. That's going to be our early adopter. The longer term is, yes, we have a large, and it doesn't have to be all on our own, right? So the idea is to go capture the rest of the industry, the including potentially the medical industry, the scientific community, etc. Eventually, to get the message out there, together we will educate the world about the importance of nitric oxide to health. Yeah, it's a long mission, but
Again, I think if it's has value, then obviously the word of mouth will play in, and people just kind of adopt it. And as you said, the early adopters will be the ones who already actually understand it, and then obviously they'll tell their people and friends how important it is. So, awesome. So, I guess moving on from just startups, and a bigger thing about you yourself is when we first had the conversation, you said that you kind of miss out on the opportunity of keeping up with your personal brand, and you said you did that for a while and then you kind of paused and you wish you did it. So I was curious about knowing if you can talk more about its importance, and how would you go about it if you were, I guess, 10-15 years younger.
Right. Yeah, I don't have to. Right, I don't have to go back that far. But yeah, I'm missing out. I did realize early on, probably by the time I got to college, that I was going to have to build a personal brand. So I started doing that, but I took a break from it to focus on my young family. I got young kids, and I don't regret focusing on my family at all. But what I did realize years later was that it did have an impact on future opportunities for myself. Right. So let me take a step back on kind of my view on personal branding, just so we're going to land on the same page here. So my realization was that, as the world became more open and competitive and fast changing because of basically the internet, it introduced a lot of kind of signal noise in our networks and into the applicant pools. And so, the services you offer to any other person or company is a service which must be sold effectively, right? For example, your resume is your sales sheet of yourself. Whether or not you think of it that way, it is. And a fundamental thing that brands must transmit, or they often do transmit, is trust, right? Why do you buy brand A versus brand B? Well, you trust brand A better. And that's because fundamentally business runs on that trust, right? So a personal brand is a way of standing out in the sea of options and then conveying that you are to be trusted in your domain of knowledge, skills, or other capability, right? So from that perspective, that's where I took, when I say take a break, it was taking a break from transmitting my brand into that vast pool. I just didn't post anything. I didn't comment on anything. I didn't network as much as I want to because I really was just, focused on myself and my family. That's kind of that opportunity of personal branding and why I believe it's important.
Yeah. But I think like you can only build a good personal brand as well, again, if you have like some value to give, right? And maybe like sometimes you need to take time off of building personal brands so you can actually build something of value and then, get back into post. Because I was talking to someone else and they told me this thing as well, like the way to get a good personal brand, or, if you want to become famous on Twitter, like all these people tweet stuff, is like do cool stuff outside of social media and then talk about it in social media and then people will follow you. No one's actually going to follow people who just like focus on like, I mean, unless you're like an entertainer or something, like, which is a big thing nowadays as well. Like, that's your lifestyle. But in the terms of personal brand of like how you said, like bringing value to people, which is not like, making like, I guess, whatever, like dances and TikTok or whatever, like, respect those people, like in terms of like actually bringing like person, like, value, as you said, like so that people pay for your services, etc., and trust you. I think like don't you think it's important to like actually spend time off maybe building the personal brand and like actually focus on building those things so you get that sort of credibility as well?
I think you're correct in what you say, but I think I would add that what I was talking about in brand and trust, it also applied before the internet. You didn't have to transmit your way that way. The most basic way of building your personal brand has always been with a network and community that you belong to. Like if you belong to a startup community or you belong to a whatever community out there, people get to know you, and then eventually through getting to know you, you get tagged as the go-to person for X, right? Like you're the person that is great for selling something, or you're the person that's great for building something out of wood, or it doesn't. That's like the start of a personal. So it doesn't mean necessarily that you've done your TikTok channel or you've tweeted about your project on the side, which are all wonderful things, to build out there. But it can start and it can be the most valuable in some kind of close network, right? So it's more holistic than just kind of a social media brand.
Yeah, it's I think something that you said actually when we first met was that your network matters more than it should, or something is along those lines, right?
Yeah, I mean, I started out into the world as my skills and my abilities will shine, and that will get me opportunity.
Yeah.
And the truth was, while that's still true, you do need those to stand out, your skills and all that, and hard work. That network, that brand, that if you build in a brand for yourself, it has a significant, maybe outsized influence on the opportunities that present themselves. And it's just, I don't think there's anything necessarily inherently wrong with it. I just think for many, we've been led to believe that, being great at something and hardworking at something then the opportunity will present itself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's just one part of the equation. There's another big chunk of that equation, which is, who meaning your network, whether that's online or in person, whatever it may be. That has a significant impact on the path to the opportunities that you want to get.
Yeah. Okay, that's super useful. And so how does one overcome the difficulty of building hard stuff? And, since you are building something hard, like because you kind of like touched upon it before where you said that you have always like gone into industries where you weren't necessarily an expert in before. And then you sort of like ask the right people and asking those questions. So how important it is to, do those things. And then like, how do you just overcome like the mental block of like, oh no, this is super hard. I don't think I can build it.
That's a interesting question. I'll try to answer that because I'm not sure I have the best answer. I like really enjoy building hard stuff. So a mental block is more of a challenge to myself than a problem. But that said, I like everyone, I'll get stuck eventually. And for me, I'll often just start trying to attack that problem from different angles, and then I'll add or find or ask other experts to try to like unlock an idea that may unblock myself. And often what helps is that I just sleep on it a few times before I just wake up one day going, let's solve it this way and overcome the block. But there have been a few times that that block becomes a boulder that can't be moved, right? And then the solution really is, how do I go around it? I spend a lot of time digging under to the side, climbing over the problem, right? And that's often where it starts for me, is that either as a team or a business or individually, you're going along on your path and you hit that boulder and you get stopped. Yeah. And that's when often innovation starts to occur, because you're like, okay, I can't move this boulder. It's just I'm not allowed to, or there's some reason I can't do it. Now I'm going to find a way around it and continue on a new path.
Yeah. I think, that's the reason I asked you as well. The question was because I think like building hard stuff often, like those people who build hard stuff lead to innovation. And I think building like any sorts of companies or any project or whatever it is super valuable, as long as, obviously people pay for it or people find value in it. Like anything you build and people find value in it, like, I respect everyone. But I just think a lot of innovation comes to someone like who's really building something really hard or something that's not been done before and is innovating. And, which is something I feel like you're doing with NNoxx, especially.
Or doesn't know better. There are times when you're innovating by accident that you didn't know. Like if you enter a new industry and you've never worked in it before and you're like, well, this is how it should work. And everyone's like, no, this is how it always worked. You're like, well, I'm just going to do it this way because I don't know better. And it ends up looking innovative. That happens too.
So having a little bit of naivety every time you start something, like
if you don't believe, well, flip that. If I believe there's no way around it, or I believe can't be done because it's always been done a different way, then I'm not going to be looking for a solution. If I come in it in a little naive approach, I don't have that belief system, and therefore I can find a new path. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, that's interesting. Was there one core moment or a series of moments that kind of like changed your life or shaped who you are, and you were like, okay, you know what? I think like for the rest of the life, I want to just build things. Or was it like since you can remember, since young, you've always been like this?
Okay, so that's a really big question. I think some of it, some of the latter of that, who I knew I was versus everything else. So let me try to answer that. There are a lot of moments that shaped who I am today for completely different reasons, right? So some events shaped how I see the world. Some of it shaped how I see business and myself. But, in this conversation, if we're going to stick with kind of startups, then I'll share that, my first real startup failure shaped my relationship with failure and myself. So
Okay.
digging into that a little bit, my relationship with failure at that point in time was, it was okay. It was in the sense that, like, while I don't like failure, and still today I don't like failure, I could accept that I failed and I could move on. That's a healthy way to accept failure. But what happened in that startup is I found that I could turn that startup failure into a career accelerator. Right. So what that meant is I could turn a failure into a win. And that would change my relationship forever with failure. So while I still don't like to fail, as I said, I found that I just don't have to accept it. I can start using failure to my advantage.
Yeah.
And so, I especially in the startup world or in the business world in general, am more likely to take on certain risks, knowing that I actually can, failure isn't the end. It might be the start to something new.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And then in that same failure of the startup, I for myself, the other big piece was I proved at that time in my life, I was still early 20s, I could prove to myself that I could actually innovate, even though I was many years ahead of the need for it. So what I saw this, that I tested what I valued and who I was becoming. Right? You kind of put in your head, maybe I'm whatever title you want to put on yourself, a label to yourself. Maybe I wanted to label myself as an innovator or something. That's who I thought I might be, but I never put it to the fire. Right? And so I was finally able to put it to the fire, and I was like, hey, even though the business didn't succeed, I did succeed in creating something really innovative. And actually, that startup is where I got my first software patent. So, that was kind of like a proof of putting, like, okay, it's okay if I didn't succeed this time, but like, I think this is who I am and who I want to become. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, like, again, as you said, like, it's only like a complete failure if you decide to like not do anything after it. But in technically looking, like, those failures weren't actually failures. Those were kind of like just lessons that you learned so you could like continue succeeding in the future. I think that's the cool thing about startups. You can never actually truly fail, even if your company like officially fails. But you are like, individually, as you said, accelerated growth, you just learn a lot more.
That's
I guess, like, getting back into it, that like what was it like, how's the learning different in like working in big tech, as you worked in Microsoft as well, and then as opposed to like when you work in your own startups?
Oh, big tech versus startups.
Yeah.
So there's always quite a few. We could go on forever on this, but really, I think if you boil it down, in my opinion, the big difference is scope and autonomy. So at a big tech, my role is generally predefined, and my scope is generally boxed. And honestly, that could be a good thing for many different reasons, and where you are in your life. I mean, but inversely, at a startup, my role is often undefined, and my scope is obviously wide open fields, right? And I love this aspect of it, but it can really be problematic for some.
Overwhelming.
The vast amount of unknowns and just running on belief or guesstimates or whatever, right, can be overwhelming. Because you're always generally you're uncertain, right? You're uncertain about, what is this feature I need to go build? Will someone buy it? It depends what stage you're in, right? But there's obviously as you get going and start that kind of field starts narrowing itself down because it's all getting defined. But the earlier you are, the more wide open everything is, and it can be chaotic in ways, and it can be overwhelming. And if you're not ready for it, or you just inherently don't like that, then it's problematic. And that's fine, right? Sorry, right. Some people love their corporate jobs, and some people love being an entrepreneur. I float between the two because I find enjoyment. They're just different types of enjoyment. in either
Yeah.
one. But yeah, that's kind of the two big differences.
So your website says that you are an innovator, mentor, and father. What has been the most enjoyable for you, and do you think the three tie together for you?
Yeah. So I think the way to answer that is, I think the three naturally tie them together, as I'm not really three separate people. I'm one person that has those kind of three labels I put on myself.
Yeah.
And if you dig into it a little bit, I really enjoyed mentoring others before I became a father. Even though I was fairly young, I just loved the idea of it. And in being a father, I naturally mentor my children. So I think those get tied together, right? And so I think the one that's a little bit disjointed, but to put it all back into tying as an innovator, being an innovator is a bit of a different mindset.
Yeah.
But I think the tie-in here is when you need to share your innovation with the world around you. I think this one took me the longest to arrive at, which was, you may have innately made the leap to arrive at your innovation, right? You were trying to solve an issue or problem or whatever you're doing to get innovation, and it all clicked and the aha went off in your head, and you're like, this is it, right? You made that leap.
Yeah.
But you have to realize that no one else has made that leap. Only you at the moment, right? It is really a hard task, and it's still something that I continue to hone in on in my own skill set. It's really a hard task to slow down and unwind your innovation into the foundational blocks that you can share or teach others to arrive at the destination you did, right? So, your innovation is probably step 10. Now step it all back and explain to others step 1, 2, 3, right? And how to get there. So, and then likely when you present each foundational block, that build up, you're going to get pushbacks and questions of why. And then that's where I think this intersects with mentorship and being a father, because my kids ask me why, and no. So I think that tie in there, but in more seriousness, I think they're all, for me, that's just part of who I am. So they're all tied. And I don't think there's any one that's most enjoyable for me.
Yeah.
I think.
I was going to say, I think it's all three of them are anything you do is with starts or raising children. It's always been solving problems every day, maybe different problems.
It's true.
Wearing multiple hats. Yeah.
That's your whole life, is solving problems.
So with everything going on, what do you do to rejuvenate? Do you do meditation, or do you have some hobbies that you kind of do to take your mind off things?
I wish I had time for hobbies. No, I'm joking. So my answer to the kind of the doing the startup is, in a way, it feels like a hobby to me at times. It's just so enjoy it so much, right? But really, this what's rejuvenating for me is the answer varies over time in my life. Currently, I would say I'm more of a day-to-day. I do some meditation. I walking my dog is just to clear, walking generally clears people's heads. I still do video games with friends and family. Now my kids are old enough. They want to do it with dad. So that's fun. And that's always is entertainment for me. And I only have to think about being in that game and not all the other problems I'm solving. Right. And then, honestly, small moments of, I'll call it nothingness. It's just part of it kind of leads into a bit of meditation there, but just trying not to have that thought process of, if I'm solving problems all day, that's an energy to be used. And so having a moment of nothing is actually kind of rejuvenating. And I'm also lean more as a introvert. And so having a moment of
for yourself,
for myself, for not having to interact, that's where I get my energy back. That's, but kind of the other thing I'd bring up here, because there's two care things have to do with startups and entrepreneurship. And I found myself, it's not a day-to-day thing. It's more much longer term. I think you'll eventually find this. If you haven't found this yourself, is that every once in a while, I'll find myself needing to rejuvenate that entrepreneurial fire inside of me. It will get exhausted for one reason or the other. And, you know, to get that back, I found that either in the in like a shorter term thing, I'll let myself explore an idea and get really excited about. I won't actually pursue it, but I'll just get like super excited about, oh, I could go build this and people would love it, and I just convince myself it's amazing, and then I'll just like after a few days put it aside. But it gets me excited. It gets that fire going. Or even better is I'll find interacting people like yourself who have that passion and express it, and that is like a feedback loop to myself of like, I see it in you and I remind myself that I have it too. And so those are I find every once in a while having that really, really helps to keep the motivation up. And then, you know, furthermore, I'll just add to that often in startups and honestly in some sort of leadership roles at bigger companies, you know, you'll find that it's almost like you're on an island, and it's not always easy to be on that island. And so it's always good to find a community or small support group that help you make that island feel a little less small. And that's so something I've been doing again as this startup has gotten more intense and involved. Those are kind of ways that I find to rejuvenate and keep that fire really going.
Yeah. I think it was super interesting the one way you said like being sustainable in the long term is to kind of like not do the things for a bit, and then you kind of like have the longing for doing it, and you see other people doing it, and then you're like, oh damn, I want to get back into it. And like I've heard that from a lot of people who kind of like think that they're going to get burnt out. It's just like they maybe take a few months off, and it's like, okay, like maybe I just need to take it off, and then they realize that like they actually really miss doing the thing, and it's like they can't wait to get back to it. And you know, they come back with more refreshed ideas. They see other people working on it, they're like, okay, like I want to get back into it now as well. So, I was curious to knowing like what would your most important piece of advice be for younger people or around 20s and 30s that it's not just for startups or entrepreneurship, but for anything, and where they want to maximize their productivity in the society, but also at the same time, you know, have a family life and be able to have time for other things, and you know, not just make work their only thing in life.
All right, that's a big question. So I'm not out of my 30s yet, so I don't know if I should be giving advice, but I get your question. I think it breaks down. Let me take a try to answer the first part of that. Was what advice would I give to someone in the 20s? And I think the second part of that was, how do I strike balance? I think was the second part of that.
Yeah.
All right. So the first part of that is there's probably a lot to pick from, but the two things I would tell myself when I was in my 20s and in my 30s, which I'm almost exiting, but I'll apply it there, is going back to in the 20s, I think, going back to part of the earlier question about growing your network. You know, be deliberate in growing it. In many ways, it's easier now than it was before because digital, but also it's a little bit harder too because the vast openness of it all. I think building that in your 20s, as your career starts to grow into your 30s, will become increasingly beneficial, especially because you don't know where those in that network, especially if you network people similar of age, will they end up. And they may end up in a place, or you may end up in a place that will benefit each other. Then I would say, you know, in my 30s, really understanding your values. You know, are the major decisions you're making aligning with your values? Because if not, you'll end up creating a lot of like internal friction that, you know, if it doesn't impact you now, it may impact you 10 years from now. Right. And that's not easy to do. But, you know, it's something I would tell myself to really keep in my back of my mind as I'm making these decisions. Balance. I don't have any advice on balance because I'm still evolving like that's every week, every month, every year, it's reevaluating how I balance. I'm getting better at it though. I mean, like it's I've been through burnout before. I don't want to do it again. So really, it's really about becoming more mindful and communicating and balancing with my family. I think that the best thing that happened to me for balance was that even before we went into the world of work from home for everyone the last couple of years,
Yeah.
I was able to be in a position where I could start doing hybrid work. So I was at home more
Yeah.
often, so I could be with my kids and do that. But yeah, there's especially for people who work at home, it's very easy to stay in that mode of working, and especially if when I didn't have kids, it was very easy to work late into the night. I just got better at putting boundaries on myself to strike a balance.
Yeah.
I will, even though I'm at home and people want my attention, I will stop working at this time. And if I free up time later on in the evening, then I come back to it. But and the thing is, I also learned that during my MBA, which was like, you always have more work than you can achieve. So you got to just pick what has the most impact and know that some of it will drop off. And same is true today. I can only do so many things in a day. I can't clone myself. What is the most valuable thing I can do? And how do I keep myself in balance? And the rest of it, I'll have to find another way, or it wasn't that important in the first place.
Yeah. Really prioritizing your things. And I think that comes with just kind of like trying it out. And as you said, and then once you keep doing it, like after a few years, you realize what's important. The reason I asked, I know you're not in your 30s, but the reason I asked you is because you have obviously you've already done so much and you have a family, so it's kind of like, it's possible, and like looking at, people like will look up to you and see like, okay, I can do this as well. In a few years, I can be where he is as well. So, so sort of like wrapping it up, one final question I had was that, what do you want Justin Saul's legacy to be? And do you believe in having a purpose?
Oh man, it's an interesting question, and I'm not going to be philosophical on this call, but So I'll keep it try to brief. So let's see if I can answer this. Honestly, I don't have a legacy goal. In fact, in some ways, I believe that in any given startup adventure that I'm on, that could be an event where I end up creating a legacy. It'll just emerge from that, right? So it's not like, hey, I want to be known for X. I don't know. And it could be, my career has shown me, and my life has shown me that, I'm in different industries, doing different activities all the time, learning different skills. And the thing is to just be open and see where it lands. So I don't know maybe this is it. Maybe this is the thing I do that creates a legacy for myself. Maybe it's the next thing I do, right? But however, saying that, I think I would love to be associated with any kind of improvement to civilization. It's kind of like my super long-term goal. I know that if it were even to happen, I'd be long dead before I ever saw the result from it. So it's weird. It's like my goal isn't achievable in my lifetime. That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that just drives me without, hitting my goal and then like, what's next? So maybe that drives into purpose. Again, it could be a long conversation just on purpose, but for me, it's the purpose is what I make it. But if I really think about it, in general, even at the start of this conversation, it came out, which was, I think my purpose is to create. And it's not just to create like new products or companies, right? My purpose is to create relationships, a family, ideas, friendship, all the other aspects of life. So for me, it's kind of a universal purpose. Yeah, I think a lot of people have that as a purpose. And I think it's, in that way, it's never ending. I can't complete my purpose. And I think, it's, you can do what you want with it, but I think you can do a lot of good with creation. So that's my purpose.
That's a pretty good answer, I think. I'm done from my side. Do you have any of the what's the wisdom that you want to provide to the listeners before signing off?
Oh man, if I didn't already provide any kind of word of wisdom in that whole chat, then
I think you gave us everything. But is there something that I didn't ask you, or something you still want to address before we end it?
No, these have been really great questions. thank you for asking them. They really thoughtful. I think we could chat for many hours on any given topic.
Yeah.
But I don't have any parting wisdom. I think I think I've dispensed some nuggets of interest for people. I don't think everyone will agree with me, and that's perfectly fine. I'm not looking for that. I think we should all have some points of disagreement, etc. But no, I don't have anything else to add today. I think I thank you for having me on your podcast here. It was actually very enjoyable.
No, I enjoyed it as well, and I try to keep the questions as in like I would be asking if I want to like do something, and I'd be trying to learn from you. So that's how I try to keep the questions where it's like I'm trying to learn from you, like your longer like bigger picture things, how you're doing it, but also trying to like go a bit more specific about like how exactly you're building the things and stuff, and like get some more like tangible like information as well from your current, I guess, like
it's wonderful.
career or whatever.
I would love to inverse this and interview you after you've done, let's say, your 100th episode, and like get your feedback of like what did you learn after you interviewed 100 people? What was the greatest takeaways you had? That'd be awesome.
Yeah, no, I would love to do that. Yeah, because there's some questions that I ask like that's gendered from a lot of people, like the legacy question, the purpose question, and like surprisingly, the answers have been completely different to what I thought. And it's just like in long term, like as you said, like a lot of people don't really care about the legacy as much as I thought they would be. And almost everyone I think it's like I've interviewed like now 9 people, and like none of them have actually so far like really cared much about this. And it's interesting. Like I never thought about that.
It'd be interesting on your demographics on that. I would guess. I mean, I'm right here. I would guess that maybe legacy becomes more top of mind as you reach higher age groups.
Probably, yeah. I mean, I did have like Alan, I guess. Maybe he was probably one of the oldest ones I think I had. But I think so. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see like as I scale up more and talk to more people from around the world and see what's this question, what their answer to is. It might be a cultural thing as well. I don't know. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, Justin, and I hope I get to interview again. Probably when NNoxx goes bigger or IPOs, and then we can have you back again.
Sure thing. We'd be happy to be back on. And again, thank you for having me. It was good to give this a try.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.